I don't
Anyway,
know.
what'd you think of my? Hold on one second. Let's go to live first. All right, we're live on YouTube as well. And then macro analysts started listening. Hopefully, we won't have any issues today. Hold on one second. If you can't hear me on YouTube live, please give me a thumbs up. All right, Meta, what'd you think of my AMD article?
I was not able to read this article in full, despite being able to read your previous Leaking Alpha.
Well, that's all right. Machine has a way of reading them anyway. I don't know how he does it, but who
I have a way
knows?
of reading it as well, but I need a laptop to do it, and I'm not going to be advertising the way here.
I got you.
I'm pretty sure it's the same way Machine's doing it, but again, I'm not going to advertise it.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. I'm looking into some VPN services. Which one do you think is best?
It's not a VPN, if that's what you're trying to ask.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm actually like literally looking into VPN services.
I honestly don't have an opinion on it. There's so
Okay.
many out there. The thing about VPNs is if you're doing it for security, it's not doing what you think it's doing. If you're doing it because you want to access content from another country, then go for it.
Okay, gotcha. Why isn't it doing it for what you think is doing it for security purposes?
Are you going to log into your personal accounts when you go through the VPN? If so, you're going to drop a cookie that connects you right back to who you actually are.
Interesting. Well, I'll reach out to you about that. I want to learn about this space a little bit more.
Yeah, all
Anyway,
the VPN does is hide your IP. So if you are on your phone and you go to a cafe and you go somewhere else and you go somewhere else and you just keep switching Wi-Fi networks, you're also effectively changing your IP all the time.
interesting. Yeah, so I signed up for Google One for Advanced Gemini, and apparently that has a VPN service, but apparently it's like doesn't really do what it's supposed to do in terms of allowing you to kind of log in from other servers or whatever. But anyway, I'll call you and maybe ask a few more questions after I watch a few more um, videos on this.
All right, I'll be your tech support for this. I'll figure it out. I'll also watch some YouTube videos on it.
Thank you. I see Wes here too. Wes, welcome. How are you?
Hey, thanks. Doing all right.
All right. So you saw. So did Bradford get back to you?
Yeah, I think he'll have time to join. Hopefully. We'll see.
Okay, great. So what did you think of his video so far?
Yeah, it's the best FSD video I've ever seen. It's pretty amazing.
Can you tell us more?
Yeah, sure. It does several things that I think are fairly new, but it just does them really well. And honestly, just to caveat this, obviously it's just like a 35-minute drive. It's all urban, and it's not, I can't definitively say we're on the March of Nines, but it's extremely better than I've seen. So there's a couple interactions that are really interesting. One is where it's following a vehicle that starts slowing down, but then turns its hazards on, and it goes around as soon as the hazards get put on, and because it's continuing to slow, and that's really human-like behavior. There's another one where it's making a left and there's cars oncoming and there's pedestrians walking, and it navigates a gap really well and also navigates a pedestrian crossing in the crosswalk that it goes through. It just does it seamlessly. It's amazing. It's really cool. So those are just kind of two examples off the top of my head, and there's actually several more. I think there's at least 5 other good ones where it's demonstrating very human-like behavior. On the aggressive side, all things considered, there's one where it seemingly enters an intersection on a red, but there's at least one other car, maybe 2 other cars in the intersection because they're going slow. And so it just proceeds through the intersection, and it did it in a safe way. it appeared to me. So I'm not saying I would fault it based on that, but obviously entering an intersection in the red, not good. But it still did something that was very human-like. So anyway, there you go.
Are you adjusting your estimate of a first robotaxi ride?
Yeah, Meta asked me the same question. I would, and I responded, and I can't remember if I just put it on the forum or put it on Twitter, but my thought was that do that drive like 7 more times, so get like 4 hours of data, and then see if that data results in no critical disengagements. And then, yeah, I would totally move it up, because that demonstrates that it's able to be a robotaxi, essentially to do like a 4-hour shift. Like that's good enough to essentially start.
But you're not adjusting at this time. You want more evidence.
Yeah, for instance, like I think 3 things need to happen. Like one, we need to see 12.3. I know TSLA pulled hers down, which is a bummer, but we'll need to see more of those. And then obviously we'll need to see more rural drives. We'll need to see highway drives, because I don't think they'll just geofence it and turn it on like that. I think it'll be more widespread. Obviously, they'll give people access to do robotaxi rides, with the driver in the seat. But yeah, would need to see things like that. Also, the roundabouts that Bradford did, I think were great. It just needs more traffic. We need to see more interactions with traffic. But based on the urban stuff in the Brooklyn Drive that I'm referring to, that was actually very good indicator of it being able to shoot gaps. It just has to like understand that a vehicle, even though it's not coming right at it or perpendicular or pulling out from a parking spot or pulling in, it does all that really well. But when it's coming like at an angle and it's effectively turning, that it knows that it's on an intercept, that's difficult. So there you go.
Meta?
I believe that video is 12.2, not 12.3.
Correct. It's 12.2.1.
Right. Do you find the pace of the 12 releases, bearing
Just
in mind...
sorry, 1 second. I created a poll on YouTube Live. If you could please vote. Where do you listen to Tesla Live? X Space only, YouTube only, listen on both. If you could vote, I really appreciate that. Meta, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, ask Wes, and I'm not trying to corner you. I genuinely am curious about your opinion on this. Do you think the rate of releases is higher, equal, or lower than you would expect it to be at this point?
Yeah, difficult.
Not wide releases, just
right. No, I know what you're asking me. I have to take the data points that I'm aware of, and those data points are basically Omar's drives. The ones that he's been doing, and where we were seeing these false positives with stoplights, and these also getting stuck, which I haven't seen in this latest drive at all. Over 30 minutes, that's pretty amazing. There's a lot of stoplights and stop signs. So I'm seeing that that's not existing anymore in a 30-minute drive. So I think they've corrected that. I'm not saying that it's a build over build correction, but something either in the metadata or something that they've adjusted potentially in the vehicle has reduced that. So I'm thinking that they've been able to fix something that seemingly was pretty major fairly quickly. I'm not saying it's super fast, but now the next data point, the next kind of big data point, because that was like the big thing that I saw with Omar's drives, is that it was doing that on occasion. And obviously it went through that one red light, but it was following cars. There was, so is that a bad data point? I'm trying to set that on occasion. Yet, if it's a big improvement, that's why 12.3 would be a really good next data point to determine that. Let's say that we get wide release of that in 2 weeks, then I would think that, yeah, they're progressing faster than 11.
So I was asking something slightly different. So let me see if I can rephrase it. the fact that we have had at least 3 point releases that we know of, right? And they have gone out to testing at least to the employee cars for those point releases that we know of. And it's, I would say around mid-January that we saw the first one go out. Do you think it's fair to say that there's first, let's correct the data. Do you think it's fair to say there's 3 point releases that went out to wave one vehicles or customer vehicles
Yeah, totally.
that over the course of 2 months?
Yep.
So that's averaging just over once every 2 weeks?
Yeah. Yeah, you could say that. I'd say that's fair.
So it's like a 2-week cadence with 75% success rate. Do you think that is that release rate, ignoring the content or the quality of the releases, do you think that release rate brings you confidence?
It does. It does seem a little faster. Yeah, it's a good point.
For the reason why I'm bringing that up, Yaman, is just because that gives us some insight into the turnaround time for fine tuning their model.
I'm having the same problem I was having yesterday. So I don't know if machine's gonna be able to speak again, but machine, just request to speak, please, if you can. Let's see if it works this time. So you're saying that you're seeing an increase in the cadence of the releases, and this gives you more confidence. And Wes agreed, but he doesn't yet adjust his estimate of first robotaxi.
I'm not necessarily saying it gives me more confidence, but what I'm saying is that the cadence of release gives us a signal that at most it takes them 2 weeks to fully train and test a model. And we know it must be less than 2 weeks because obviously there's other steps involved beyond training the model.
Machine,
Hello.
Meta, can you hear machine?
No.
Oh my god, this is so stupid.
I could hear him.
You-
He shows up.
Oh,
you
this
heard
way,
him?
though.
Oh wait, if you can
Yeah.
hear him, I'll drop him and come back.
All right, go ahead.
Machine, can you say something else?
Machine, go ahead.
Yaman is good looking.
Oh gosh, I'm not sure if that's Machine. Sounds like him.
If YouTube Live can hear machine, please give me a thumbs up. If YouTube Live can hear machine, please give me a thumbs up. All right, machine, say one more thing and let's see if Meta can hear you.
Meta is a charlatan who's changing his mind and wish-washy with his bets.
Meta, did you hear that? Meta? Now I can't hear Meta. Can we only have like 2 people at a time?
Meta is muted. At least he shows muted for me.
Yeah, he is muted. It's very unlike him. I wonder if I can only have like 2 people at a time when this thing is on. This is so fucking dumb. Sorry.
It is a bit frustrating.
Yeah. Anyway, so machine, what do you think about everything that's been said so far?
Yeah, I would agree. The time to train is less than 2 weeks, probably a bit less than that. Like Meta said, they have to obviously test QA and all this stuff as well. I think it is a positive. The time frame. Those are all positives. Yeah, I look at the software as closer to quote feature complete. And that's why you can see all these testing situations where it's more natural, more human-like. So all great things we were hoping what we would see with a sort of end-to-end training. The main thing still, though, at this point is either if you're focused on it as a L2 software, that it's getting very close to being very useful. But if you're focused on it,
Yeah, I can Meta, I can hear you, but machine is talking and you
I
came
can
out
hear
the
him too.
speaker and he dropped now. I am so frustrated. I'm so frustrated.
can you hear me?
I can hear you, but
Okay,
Meta
yeah.
can't hear you.
Yeah. Maybe it's
And
because
YouTube can't hear you.
I was gonna say I don't know if it was because
I'll pull up YouTube.
Oh my god.
Wait, I can hear Meta and Machine now.
Yeah, I can hear everybody too. It's just Meta and machine can't hear each other. That's it.
Well, that's probably for the best. But
See, YouTube says they can't hear Meta.
that's probably for the best. But what I was going to say is, yeah, that's all positive. But if you're focused on robotaxis and all that, like that's still, you have to pay more attention to critical disengagement rate, right? And that's hard still to perfectly ascertain from a few videos. And that's just going to be a long, well, maybe not that long. We don't know exactly, but time frame to study. And I believe Wes elsewhere had stated something that if he saw this thing performing, I don't know if it was roundabouts like 50 or 100 times in a row without
roundabouts
failure, that he would buy calls, which for Wes is perhaps a risky play. So
I
that's
never
saying
buy
something.
calls.
But yeah, I would be more like, yeah, if I saw it like all the YouTube videos basically coming up from people and not basically seeing any critical disengagements, that would be for me a key indicator. But at the same time, can we really expect this to happen from the same CEO who can't get X spaces to work properly? Why don't we have a 2-week moving update software for this here?
Yeah, it's funny because some people are saying they can't hear machine. Some people are saying they can't hear Meta. Some people are saying they can hear you, but they can't see you. And I see you guys on one and not on the other screen. So it could be either X, it could be YouTube, unlikely. It could be StreamYard or some sort of combination, permutation. A lot of possibilities. So machine, are you adjusting your first robotaxi estimate? By the way, if you want to hear and see machine, go to YouTube Live. You can, I think, do it there. Or just pull everything open and then you'll get the combination of the two, I think, works fine. Anyway.
Not at this point. I mean, because to be honest, I was, maybe a month or so ago to more leaning toward pushing it back into later 2025. And, then they made some progress with V12 and it's seemingly Musk indicating some of the compute bottleneck is being relieved currently. And so those are promising aspects that, allow me to kind of stay, I guess. I think my last was like November 2024, I think was what I last stated. I'm going to stick with that for now. I mean, that's still pretty, we're getting to the point, it's much like options, like buying calls. Like you buy this thing a few years out and it's like kind of an aggressive play. But when you're like 6 months out, now you're getting really aggressive on your prediction. Like do I really think in 6 months this is definitely going to happen? Like that, there's so much variability. So I can't, everything's so sensitive day to day on what happens. So I'm not moving it right now, but I find it very unlikely that it's going to be significantly moved up, into the summer or something like that. That sort of egregious, reckless sort of behavior is only something I would expect from Meta or you.
Meta.
Sorry, because I was still listening to Machine finish his statement. But my question to Machine here would be, what did he expect the release cadence to be at this point? And does the current release cadence surprise him?
Yeah, I commented on that a few minutes ago when you weren't listening. I said, yeah, I think the cadence, I don't know if I had expectations, but the cadence is, I guess, faster than I would have expected, especially you think now the training time's got to be, like you said, obviously under 2 weeks, maybe closer to 1 week, because then they have to do testing and debugging. And so that's a positive. It's a big positive.
Is that it?
Well, the other question I was going to ask is,
did he drop?
No, I still see him. Oh, well,
No, I'm
I don't
still
know.
here.
I see him on your screen.
You literally stopped talking in the middle of a sentence.
Yeah, I just cut myself off. I was like, just so I don't, pontificate.
Wow. That's really amazing. You're growing into an adult. I'm proud of you.
Finally, eventually, it was going to happen.
I think we're all improving at the same time in these spaces. Anyway, Meta.
I just need to be very clear. This is such a trippy experience because these YouTube is 5 second lagged, and I have to like mute and unmute it. So I don't know how long I can do this for, but
Let me see if I can change that real quick. Give me 1
Okay.
second. Keep going. How is it now? Is it better?
we can test and
Mach-
see.
Machine, talk.
What do you want me to say? What do you want
Did
me to
you hear
talk
that?
about?
I don't hear him.
You don't hear him at all now? Even on YouTube?
I hear him on YouTube. I hear him on YouTube. Okay.
Oh,
This is better. This is better. This is better. All right.
Well,
I'm gonna try and do this best I can. This is so bizarre.
Okay.
Let me try and leave and come back one more time. Let's see if that works.
it's the downfall of your spaces.
yeah, we had the same problem yesterday. I don't know what changed.
I
Honestly.
tried to blame the fact that I'm using my desktop as being an issue, but I don't know. Like,
No, it's not on your end. I don't think it's on your end.
Yeah.
Anyway, so with the bottleneck for AI training chips easing, I mean, I guess Wes is still bullish on NVIDIA, but Machine, you bought puts on Supermicro, right?
Correct. That obviously could go in the wrong direction, but I'm just basically anticipating some hype going into their S&P inclusion and there being a pullback afterwards. And like I mentioned the other day, they're, I think, a bit more highly valued versus NVIDIA. So if you're at any way bearish on that market, that they would suffer a bit more than NVIDIA or a bit earlier. So there's multiple reasons there. They have their S&P inclusion aspect, and then also they're a little bit more overvalued or higher valued. So, well, I mean, this is just a relatively small position, probably about 7% of my money, or something like that. So I'm trying to keep things be more conservative with all my plays. I'm trying to bet on more companies, be more diversified than I used to be. Unless Tesla goes down to 150, which I do
All right,
predict
this
to happen.
is where you. All right, Meta, can you talk?
Yes, I can talk.
Okay. So what do you think about Machines puts on Supermicro? And Wes is bullish on NVIDIA. Machine is bearish on Supermicro. And you're looking for an opportunity to essentially short some of maybe one or two of these companies, right?
I think Machine also sold all his NVIDIA, so he should really
Oh
thank
yeah,
me
that's
for
right.
convincing him to sell and go into a put for SMCI. I probably will follow suit on the put for SMCI, frankly.
Machine, why'd you go with puts on SMCI rather than writing calls?
Good question. So I compared what they looked like in terms of a call spread, because I just haven't bothered getting level 3 options. I don't want to deal with naked calls in the margin calculation. So it's fine. I would do a call spread, a wide call spread, and compare it to a put spread to get a sense of the premiums and of the same strike prices. And the call spread was actually worse by 1% or 2 in terms of potential return. So that was giving me some sense that there was actually a little more upside on the put. And buying a put is simpler than dealing with any spreads. So I prefer that if the IV or the cost of the contracts makes sense, then I would prefer puts.
Wes, can you hear everybody and talk?
I can hear machine and you.
I think the algorithm yesterday detected all the BS coming out of Meta, and Grok figured out how to just block him, basically, because of how he was just changing all his rules of engagement. Basically, I mean, he basically said, I'm glad everyone can hear me today. Basically, he's just saying, oh, it's a successive Tesla's L3. The driver sitting there and the software can tell them when to grab the wheel. No sense did we ever agree to that as being FSD level, like L4 door to door or whatever. All of a sudden now the driver's got to take over. No, that was not part of this conversation a year ago. Absolutely not. And that's why he was banned by the X software.
Yeah, it's really bad. Yesterday's conversation was just painful for me. I wonder if there's a limit now on just two people being able to hear each other or something. I don't know. Wes, I'm gonna drop you off for actually just stay. That's fine. Omar's here too now.
So I have a question. Was everyone able to hear each other before I joined?
Yeah. Omar, can you hear Machine, me, Meta? This is so funny.
I don't see machine on the board.
I don't either, but I can hear him. That's so funny.
Right, you know what? I can't believe this is going to happen. I'm going to reinstall my X app, and
No, you don't have to. You don't have to do that. It's probably StreamYard.
Let me just see. Let me just test it.
Omar, how are you?
I'm doing good.
How is the Cybertruck?
It's incredible. Best vehicle Tesla makes, I think.
Where are you right now?
Where are you? I don't see you. We just we just hear you right now. It's fucking trippy. It's like I don't see you, but I can hear you. You're like omnipresent. And you're probably laughing at what I just said, but I can't see your reaction.
Your mom also calls me a god, so I am omnipresent.
Meta is saying he's reinstalling X2. I don't know. All right, why don't you just come back? You all come back. When you come back to speaker mode, if it doesn't work still, we're going to try something else. I have another idea. All right, Omar, why don't you give us a few sentences on Cybertruck or V12.3, whichever you want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, Cybertruck's incredible. Nothing much new to report there that I haven't already said. I've really been enjoying driving it. Really looking forward to FSD being available. That's the one thing that pains me about it, but it's so cool that I still want to drive it, even though it doesn't have FSD. Now, FSD 12.3, some of the early feedback I've heard from employees has been positive. One employee told me yesterday in a DM, 12.3 is pretty damn good. They fixed all my complaints. No more unnecessary slowing at crosswalks and at intersections. So very excited to try that. Typically, we see a build go out to employees. Sometimes then, the next day it'll start to go out to customers. So we could see that maybe, today or any time. Sometimes there's a 0.1 required. So there might be like a 12.3.1 we have to wait for before it goes out to customers. But it looks like this is running on hardware 4 already, which is a good sign. So
Yeah.
once it's on my car, I'll let you guys know how it is. And hopefully that sets us up for a pretty wide deployment following that.
Yeah. All right, we're going to do a sound check. I see everybody on the board now. Oh my gosh, is this resolved? Meta, sound check.
Actually, I see everybody on the board now too.
Okay, machine, sound check.
Sound check.
Wes,
Yep, heard everybody.
Okay, great. Can YouTube Live, sound check, thumbs up, sound check. This is great. Feels like we're about to launch a rocket. T minus T. All right, Machine, go ahead.
Your mom let me launch a rocket last night.
All right, that was really good.
Now I wish I couldn't hear Machine anymore.
So as I expected, and it's lucky you have a real software competent person in this space who's used to debugging software hardware interactions. That's me, if you guys aren't understanding. Understood that injecting the desktop interaction might possibly induce some confusion to the software. And I was the one who could figure that out. All you guys were like, no, it doesn't matter. Oh no, it's somewhere else. No, see, it now is very clear.
Now you created this problem.
Yes, that's what I was trying to tell you.
What Machine is saying is Machine is really good at knowing how to make bad software, and so he can look at software and recognize why it's bad.
Exactly.
Wow. Hey Omar, did you get permission from your girlfriend today to join the spaces?
Yeah, I'm all free. I'm in the apartment by myself, so we're all
Did you
clear.
kick her out just to join the space? You kicked out your girlfriend. Wow, that means a lot. Thank you. So we're talking about.
Little do we know, Omar's hiding in a closet right now.
That's what I have to do if my wife's home. Otherwise, she'd be like, "You're such an idiot. Why are you talking in these stupid spaces?"
No, I don't think she says the second sentence. I think she just says you're such an idiot when she hears everybody else on the board.
All right. All right. We have all the FSD experts on the board right now. Let's talk V12.3. And if Bradford comes in, maybe he can tell us about. But he doesn't have 12.3, right?
No, he's still on 12.2.
Right. What happened to that one account that had 12.3? Just disappeared.
It appears that they deleted their own account, which you can do. You can suspend your account and then reactivate it within 30 days. This could typically happen if the person who was posting it was a Tesla employee, or was maybe a spouse of a Tesla employee, or a friend of a relative of a Tesla employee, and didn't realize that videos are not supposed to be posted of these early builds. So they could have potentially been worried about someone losing their job or getting in trouble, and that might be why the account was removed. That's my best theory.
Makes sense. Machine?
Yeah, I think that probably makes sense. I mean, maybe also people were figuring out something about where she lived, including me, because it was like, oh, it was something like a Tesla AI girl in the Bay Area. And I was looking at the video and realizing she was in Stockton. I'm familiar with the Bay Area, but
Stockton's in the Bay Area now? Wow.
Stockton is not in the Bay Area. Okay, Stockton is in the Central Valley where all the meth is produced. Okay, it's a shithole. The only positive thing that ever came from Stockton is Chris Isaac, who I like.
And a video on V12.3.
Yeah, my cousin went to dental school in Stockton. So one time I took a train from Santa Clara to Stockton to hang out with him, and we saw Louis C.K., the guy who later got in trouble for jacking off too much.
Did your cousin do dentist work in Stockton? Because it sounds like it's a meth capital.
Dude,
Yeah, no,
Louis C.K. Louis C.K. is one of my favorites. I mean, that guy
he's really good.
is insanely good. I can't remember the name of the stand-up that he did. I watched
The Airplane?
I'm not sure which one it is, but he was talking about I'll send you guys a link later. But he is so masterful in his craft. It's insane. Like, I was literally on the floor laughing and rolling. This is like 7-8 years ago, and oh my god, he got canceled, but he's back now, right, Omar?
Yeah, he's selling things on his website.
Yeah,
he's also touring.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those shows I would want to see. Did you guys see his bit about Matt Damon? and Good Will Hunting.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you gotta YouTube that one. That one was really good too.
My
Anyway.
favorite bit he has is the one where people just got internet on the plane and then they lose it 30 minutes into the flight and they get really pissed
Yeah.
about not having it.
Yeah,
bet
you're
you-
literally in a chair, thousands of
Flying through the
miles.
sky.
Exactly.
You're like a Greek myth right now.
You didn't even know this thing existed 30 minutes ago.
Exactly.
Dude,
Exactly.
I love it because it comes up so much in tech where people are always like, you give them something and then like it doesn't work and they get so pissed. It's like,
Exactly. No,
people
the
get
one,
adjusted so quick.
the one I'm talking about goes something like he's in like a center stage. Okay, so the audience around him. This is like almost 10 years
I
ago,
think it's I Am Louis.
and yeah, maybe he's talking about like, but maybe you remember that bit?
Yeah,
He-
the bit is he gets everybody to like
Yeah,
slowly.
don't give it away. Don't give it away.
Okay,
Don't
okay.
give it away. But that bit was probably the best comedy sketch,
If
like the comedy
if you like
segment I've
stand-up
ever seen in my life.
if you like stand-up comedy, there's a very rarely watched thing, but it's on HBO called Talking Comedy. It's only 1 hour between Louis C.K., Jerry Seinfeld, Ricky Gervais, and Chris Rock, all sitting there
Oh, I've
dissecting
seen that one.
what the
I've seen that
common
one.
comedy thread is. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a great video.
yeah. All right.
Now
Back
that
to
we have all the
FSD.
mics working, I like how we really dug into the important subjects.
Exactly. Exactly. Hey, Omar, you're not going to believe this, but Machine sold all his NVIDIA and then bought puts on Supermicro.
Yeah, wow. I mean, making these crazy options trades is kind of destined to eventually blow up in your face, I feel like.
Machine.
Yeah, I mean, well, that already happened to me in 2022. Now I'm much a little more risk averse by diversifying. I'm not, putting a whole bunch of money on one company. I did, however, I did buy puts on Tesla last week at 180, and so just sold them today. FYI, to make a little bit of cash. The obvious weakness in this shit stock.
Do you guys let's turn back to Tesla for a second. Do you guys think that Q1 production deliveries miss is priced in the stock already?
No.
But don't you think that the fact that we're talking about this and the fact that certain analysts out there were following production deliveries very closely and have been very accurate in the past already put out their articles in the last few weeks about this topic, Machine?
I believe it's partially priced in. The part that might be priced in is the actual number, as in if it was announced when it's announced at the beginning of April, that maybe that there's not much market movement around that because that was already priced in. But I don't believe the effect on earnings has been priced in, and that will be coming in the next month or so.
Yeah, that's a good point. So let's talk about earnings. So you think this production deliveries miss is going to really do you expect negative earnings for Q1?
No, I mean I haven't done a model in the last quarter or so, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to create negative earnings. It will just be lower, like around 50 cents or something, outside of the energy contribution, which of course we never know how much of that revenue is recognized in a quarter. I think though, then what's more important there is, then you can compare year over year is still down. It's more about forward expectations at that point that were so low and that people are going to be forecasting out quarters ahead for the next year, not much earnings growth. Whether that's correct or not, I do believe that's what is going to happen unless they say something very positive on the earnings call. And the fact is that there was this meeting, which I still am not clear on, the meeting with Tesla investors relations with institutional investors, where apparently that's where these people are coming out from, saying things like there might be zero earnings in a quarter or very bearish predictions, or they wouldn't guarantee margins have bottomed out and all that. And I just try to understand exactly what was said there, but it seems like the quote body language from that meeting was not good. And so that's just also kind of funneling into my mindset here that things might get a little worse before they get better.
Omar, what do you think?
Well, everyone's expectations are low, so that's usually a good thing. Ultimately, it depends on how bad the numbers really are. So if they're really bad, then yeah, the stock's going to move lower when that production and delivery report comes out. And it'll probably, fall 10% like it usually does after earnings, depending on what the numbers look like. Now, if it's better than expected, then you won't see that as much. But, some of it is being priced in. Some of it will probably be priced in after the move. But, you know, it's not really that clear to me. I think it'll probably be year over year an increase. We'll probably see a sequential decline. Um, but we also have COGS falling as well. We have less price cuts than we saw in the year ago quarter. So we'll kind of have to see. But expectations are pretty low, and it seems like there may be some basis in reality for that. But ultimately, it's, I don't think, going to be the end of the world. I expect we'll still see above 400,000 deliveries. And, the company will continue to grow this year over last year, even. But I'm not really that concerned about how deliveries look in Q1. As long as it sort of falls in the 400,000 to 500,000 range, I don't think it really impacts my thesis that much.
Machine, do you have a response to that? As long as deliveries fall between 400,000 and 500,000, doesn't expect
I mean,
a long-term impact.
this is like saying you'd be willing to date a woman who's between a 1 and a 10. You're just like, there's just no boundary there, really. Okay, between 400,000 and 500,000, it's like a plus or minus 20%.
I don't know. I kind of agree with Omar. Like, it'd be different if he said 100,000 to 500,000. He's not saying that. He's saying 400,000, 500,000. And if you believe that Optimus is majority of the intrinsic value in the longer term, then what difference does it make that you've delivered 400,000 cars versus 500,000 cars in Q1?
Fine, that's fair. If you don't, yeah, none of that stuff. So if you think it's all fully priced in, what does it matter? You're focused on FSD and Optimus, fine. But in the meantime, if you're at all concerned about share price this year, most likely the movement in share price this year is going to be based on automotive and energy changes and expectations for that. Most likely, of course, the fat tail risk of FSD doing something amazing or Optimus is there, right? But that's most likely not going to be what's moving the stock right now.
Okay, we have Sawyer on the board. Sawyer, any news that you'd like to share or you'd like to talk about your petition?
Well, first, good to be back. I feel like it's been a while. I'll just say on my thoughts on delivery. I do think expectations are far too high. I don't think Wall Street actually expects 472. I think the whisper number is likely a lot lower than that. I'm personally more towards Gary's estimation of 425. I think 415, 420, honestly. I don't know if it's priced in or not. I have no clue. I don't know. But yeah, slow news day. We'll see what deliveries are like in a couple weeks.
Let me ask you about Berlin. Elon said that Berlin production started again, right? Is it full production or are they going to be ramping throughout the coming days and weeks?
No, yeah, it'll take a little while to ramp. The senior manager at the factory sort of alluded to that. So they can't just turn everything on a dime and be back to 5,000 or whatever it is per week. It'll take a little while.
Okay, great. Omar, do you have any comments on Berlin?
Well, losing a week out of Berlin obviously takes a little hit out of production and deliveries. Berlin isn't a huge producer, but it's a week out of Berlin. Then you got Fremont. We're seeing lower output of Model 3 out of Fremont. That's going to weigh in a little bit on the US market. Cybertruck, I think there's tremendous demand for Cybertruck. Supply is still relatively low. It's looking to me like a few thousand units a quarter or something like that, like less than 10,000, more like 2,000. So there's going to be some pent up demand. Maybe a guy who would have bought a Model Y or a Model S, but they're waiting for their Cybertruck order to come in. And we just have general weakness in the auto market. We have high inventories. We have a lot of price incentives, a lot of non-Tesla EVs sort of giving incentives and matching Tesla on pricing, 0% financing. Just generally not a great auto market in the US. And in China, you've also got the property bubble and other stuff. All of that headwinds. I think they did 422 deliveries in Q1 of 2023. So if they can get above 422, even if it's only 425 or something, I consider that a win if they're still growing year over year. But, does it really make that much of a difference to my thesis about AI if they deliver 475 versus 425? Yeah, obviously, I'd like to see him deliver 475. I mean, ideally, I'd like to see him deliver over 500K every quarter, but that may not be possible given some of these product ramps and things that we discussed. So we'll see ultimately, sell fewer cars, you're going to make less money. And that's what the market is sort of trying to price in here.
Does
I just
anyone
think
on the board go ahead? Sorry.
I was just going to say, yeah, it's just a tough environment in general. We have this Polestar today coming out announcing pricing for their Polestar 3 EV, which is supposed to be a really popular EV in the US. It was supposed to start at 84,000 because they announced the price just like a handful of months ago. And now they come out and say, no, it's actually starting at not 84, it's starting at 73,000, over $10,000 less than what they originally planned. I think that just shows you how difficult it is, not only for EVs, but just the auto sector in general.
Yeah, it also kind of shows you how strong the demand is for Cybertruck, that in this kind of pricing environment where you're just seeing people trying to undercut themselves, huge incentives, huge inventories on the lots, and Tesla's just selling these Cybertrucks with the $20,000 foundation series that, includes all this other stuff, but people are instead of just waiting for a $80,000 truck, which may get the point of sale credit, they're willing to pay 100K for it. So it does really show the strength of this product. I believe as they get volumes up and they launch the $80,000 and $60,000 non-foundation series in time, there's going to be a huge, huge amount of demand there ready to take advantage of.
Yeah, Numan, you briefly asked me about the petition. Just this minute, we're sitting at 7,499 signatures. We need one more to hit 7,500. But thank you all to the people that have shared it. Good showing out. Ideally, we'd get more signatures, but this is better than nothing, of course. So hopefully, this is something Tesla can use in their efforts, and they can point to show that there is support for these changes.
Absolutely. And if you hear anything back from NHTSA or another institution, you're welcome to come up and announce it here too.
Yeah, we'll
that's
do.
great
You.
effort. Great effort. I read it, and it was very well written, Sawyer. I think it's going to get us some support for sure. Does anybody on the board believe that Q1 could show year-over-year decline in deliveries? Anyone on the board?
What was Q1 of last year?
Very good question.
I forget. I don't know off the top of my head.
But I know
I think it's safe to say yes, though.
I know at least one person that believes that's a possibility.
I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's a possibility. It's always a possibility that you could see a year-over-year decline, but I'd probably put it at 30%.
Last year deliveries Q1 422,875. So yeah, looking possible. Production is 440,000, so that's probably going to be a year-over-year decline anyway. Machine, and no more.
I think there's over a 50% chance, maybe not much, that they have year-over-year decline.
Let me ask you this: what do you think is the probability of a loss in Q1?
I think it's still pretty low. I think you'd have to cut prices drastically to drop your earnings that much, like 50 cents you'd have to drop off. And I know Cybertruck now is going to have some of those higher costs come on.
Wenn ich auf Arbeit fahre, freue ich mich am
expert
meisten, mein
in
Team
that
wiederzusehen, gemeinsam
modeling.
Rekorde an
Product come on.
Stückzahlen zu brechen.
Nor am I an expert in financial modeling at all. But I hesitate that the price cuts that have happened, I don't think have been so drastic. Like they are more than before, than last quarter, but not to the level that you would cut off basically all their earnings, 50 cents, let's say.
Well, that's not the problem, I think. The problem is more around lower deliveries leading to higher fixed cost per unit, so lower. You see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand, right? And so if you compared it to a year ago, because that was the same deliveries,
but we have a lot more. We have a lot more capex in the last 12 months.
Yeah, and they had higher ASPs obviously a year ago. So I haven't done that calculation, but you could try to compare it to that time frame from a COGS or fixed costs. That presumably it would be.
Yeah, because Q4 deliveries were 485,000.
Yeah. So yeah, no, the fixed costs are going to be hurting more. So yeah, I haven't done the math. I don't have you. It just sounds still far, like it's not.
I don't really do. I haven't done quarterly projections in a while in the last couple of years, but I'm actually thinking about doing another DCF. Doing a DCF again.
I will say,
but this would be for patrons. So this phase would not happen if it wasn't for the patrons. Zero chance. It's only for the patrons that this space is able to go on. And so one of the ways I might, we'll say, machine.
We'll say one bad sign, which I don't think I mentioned. I think it was last week, that AJ, which is doing some financial modeling of Tesla, said he changed his model from a DCF model or something to a valuation-based model, which to me was a bad sign because he's basically not liking what he was seeing from that. And that he's basically
how is DCF not a valuation?
I don't know.
I don't know. What does that mean?
I don't even know. But he basically, that's what he said. And then he was just basically going on, Tesla historically has had supported a PE ratio of like 100. Therefore, I'm going to use that for the near future to show that they could get to $300. I'm like, this is very weak. So he must not have liked what he had been seeing.
That doesn't make any sense. That can't be why. Because DCF is the only way you can value Optimus right now. You can't do it on historical multiples. You can't do it on forward-based multiples because it's more than a couple of years out and volume production of Optimus. So DCF is the only way. So what you just said is unlikely to be what he said. Go ahead.
Well, he was not modeling really Optimus that much. He's talking about what he values it at for the end of this year. Mostly, I believe, on automotive energy. I have to go find the tweet though, because you're right. I might be misspeaking.
Yeah, I pinned at the top the link to Patreon. If you want to support the space, please go to the link at the top. All right. Sawyer, any other news? Otherwise, let's talk about some FSD. We have such great FSD folks on the board right now. I would love to hear their views. Omar, have you been? Go ahead.
Yeah, let's go to FSD.
Okay. Omar, have you been watching Bradford's videos? Or did you want to say anything about the Tesla AI Girls 12.3 video?
Yeah, I've been watching Bradford's clips as he posts them. I mean, I have 12 on my car, so it's not really anything that surprising. I mean, 12 is phenomenal. It's not quite ready to go out. It does, as I've said, have more critical interventions than V11, but it's able to drive you from parking spot to parking spot with no interventions quite often. Like, probably a little more than 50% of the time, it can do that. So I think people are going to love it as it goes out. 12.3 is going to be super exciting. I'm taking these Waymo driverless cars, and it's just completely normal. Today I had to go move my Model S to this parking garage since I have two cars now. And so I had to go park it somewhere. So I got in my Model S. It was parked outside my apartment, and I said, "Take me to this garage." And it just drove me all the way there with zero interventions. And so I went in and I parked it. Then I called a Waymo and it picked me up and it brought me back. And I did this 2-mile trip to the garage and back. I didn't do any driving. So this is the world that we're entering. And Waymo today announced the details of their expansion into Los Angeles. And they're going to be giving free rides to people. And they are going to be handing out temporary codes that you can use to get, um, you know, a ride for a short amount of time. So this is kind of an interesting issue they have because they don't have enough cars. So they can't really afford to have everyone just ordering Waymos because the wait times would get too long and it would be a terrible experience for everyone. So they kind of have to limit it in LA and San Francisco. They have these invite codes. They've been gracious enough to provide me an invite code for San Francisco, which I love. I'm hoping that I get off the invite list in LA too. It's a separate invite list. And I'll report on how it is there. But they showed the initial service area, which looks like a decent service area. Not all of LA, obviously. LA is huge, but a lot of the sort of main areas there. So I think that's going to sort of blow a lot of people's mind just experiencing a driverless ride for the first time. And as more people experience FSD Beta 12 in Los Angeles, I mean, FSD Beta 12 can actually do some moves that are even more smooth and human like than a Waymo and more natural than a Waymo. So I think the combination of these things expanding slowly but surely is really going to blow everyone's mind. The other thing that is an
Let me
interesting.
let me get Meta's what Meta say real quick, and then we'll get back to you. Meta.
Just a quick question. I think you've looked at this more than me. Do you know if the Waymo includes highway now for LA, or is that still not included?
I'd have to check the service area, but I imagine that it does include some highway driving, given that that's kind of necessary in LA. They have like Santa Monica and stuff like that, and I imagine getting from West Hollywood to Santa Monica, you need to use the highway. But yeah, let me double check the service area and see if there's any freeways in there. I'm pretty sure the 405 and other freeways are on there, but we'll really have to see what the car chooses to do, whether it chooses to get on the freeway or whether it stays on the surface streets. I have for many months now been seeing Waymos testing on the highway, both in San Francisco and in the LA area, with human drivers behind the seat. But they only just recently received approval to operate on a highway without a driver in the driver's seat. So this is pretty crazy. We're talking about high speeds here, LA traffic, crazy stuff happening. If they can really drive on the freeway in LA without a driver, that is damn impressive and just a testament to the progress we're seeing in AI across the industry right now.
Machine
I,
and
I,
then Meta and then machine.
I was just gonna say, as a data point, I did experience it go on the highway in Phoenix when I left the airport in a Waymo. So it does it sometimes. So I just don't know if yeah, exactly what you said.
Yeah,
For
I
LA,
think
it
in
seems like a
Phoenix
bigger deal.
they did for the airport. Yeah, they opened that a few months ago, I think.
Maybe maybe I should go back to desktop so I don't have to hear Meta anymore. Since he interrupted me again.
On YouTube Live, you guys can now see Waymo showing the service area in the LA service. Angelina, machine, can you put yourself on mute when you're not talking?
You interrupted me again.
I know, but I'm the host. And you were just wasting time with all these amazing speakers on the board. Angelinos and Austinites, we've got news for you. Beginning tomorrow, we'll start inviting members of our waitlist to ride with us permanently in LA and in Austin. We'll continue fully autonomous testing before welcoming public riders later this year. Machine and that Rebellionaire.
So if you study the map that they show for Los Angeles in detail, I know most of you wouldn't be able to catch on this, but I'm highly in tune to detail that the curvature of the coverage area around the 405 indicates that it is going to, excuse me, not the 405, the 10. I can't believe I said the 10, I-10. It will include I-10 based on the way the map curves around supporting the 10 freeway. So that I think will be included. The 405 and 110, unlikely not, just because it's a short area. Doesn't seem like it would be useful to get on off the highway, but I do think it's going to include I-10.
Do you get nervous when there are hundreds of people in the space?
Absolutely not.
Your performance drops.
First
That's
of
what your
all, it's
mom
not
never says.
I-10. It is the 10. Okay, this is Los Angeles we're talking about here. And I mean, it looks like the 10, the 110, the 405 are all included. So most of the major freeways, disappointingly, it does stop at Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood. So no Sunset Boulevard, no Sunset Strip, no Hollywood. So there are some notable emissions from this coverage area that I could see would frustrate me trying to use this in LA. But hopefully, as they prove this out and get more cars, we see that service area continue to expand to Hollywood and the Valley and other parts of Los Angeles.
Isn't the exclusion of the Santa Monica Boulevard more, doesn't it make sense given the amount of pedestrians and like just those spaces? I think for a first expansion, I'm just looking at the video, it seems pretty large. I don't know the area well enough to say, but isn't that like a large enough area for people to find use to go to work and back maybe?
It's an extremely large and diverse area that covers really the epicenter of Los Angeles.
Okay, so this is not like a geo-fenced baby launch.
I mean, it's geofence, but it's a pretty extensive geofence. We're talking downtown to Santa Monica rides possible with this thing.
Yeah, as the expert of someone who's actually lived in Los Angeles and the peninsula, these are kind of similar coverage areas. I mean, you're going to handle the ability of over 1 million people in each place. SF Peninsula, Waymo is also going to expand down. And yeah, you can go all the way to downtown, Koreatown, Pico Union, MS-13, the popular gang. You'll be able to drive by there. MacArthur Park, where all the drugs are traded. That's also covered. Hollywood. So, I mean, you're going to get all parts of Los Angeles. Skid Row. I mean, you can see everything that LA has to offer from a Waymo.
Actually, one guy already tried to steal the Waymo car, and he got arrested in LA.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I think Wes had some questions for Bradford, right, Wes?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm just waiting.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Bradford, hopefully you can hear me. The Brooklyn Drive was awesome and lots of interesting points. It was super cool to see the vehicle pull over to the left on the one-way and park. That was neat. It was really neat to see it react literally like immediately to the vehicle that put its hazard lights on. It was really cool to see the other one with hazards at the light go around it, even though it went over the double yellow and had to stop there for the other cars that were oncoming to go left. Like, that was super cool. It seemed to handle that really well. Like, there was many points in that video where I was thinking, like, I haven't seen it behave this well before. So that's why I was thinking that this was the best FSD video I've ever seen, because it's phenomenal. Like, so many interesting points. So anyway, the question that I had was, do you think that video is a good indication of how it's been working for you so far, or how would you kind of classify it?
I'd say it's a good indication. It's not perfect. Yaman, can I pin it to the space?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, it's really sick. It's really crazy how well it did in Brooklyn, New York. There's no right turn on red generally in New York City, and unless it's specifically allowed by a sign. So it did not turn right on red. And we were wondering, okay, why is it not turning right on red? And we almost like intervened to hit the pedal to, force it to, go right on red. Another thing is it's expected that you block the intersection in New York City. So like if you have the green and there's cars in front of you, but you would be blocking the cross traffic if it turned red, typically it's expected that you just go ahead and go for it. And generally the Tesla did that. There were cases where it uses judgment not to. So it's like it knows where it is. So it's driving in that style. Whereas in Austin, Texas, there's explicit signs that say don't block the box, a $500 fine. And when we did Farzad's test and we did it in rush hour in Austin, it didn't block the intersection. So I'm really impressed. I think this is a huge leap forward, and it took me until I got to my hometown and tried it out on all my problem spots that I've really come around on it. So I'm just amazed. It does so well on the roundabouts. I'm a little ashamed to say this, and let me get the tweet for y'all to check out.
Wes,
But I'm ashamed of this. Can you still hear me? That it actually drives the roundabouts better than I do.
got it. Wes?
Yeah, the roundabout video was great. I'm hoping, I mean, I don't know if you're going to go back there or if there's another spot that potentially has roundabouts. I would love to see more roundabouts done with cross traffic where cars are going in front of you and you kind of have to shoot the gap. Because that, for me, like with everything else that I've seen, like that's kind of the major kind of hole that exists right now, kind of leading us down this march of nines. So I'm interested to see that. I'm going to do that when I get it. Hopefully that's sooner rather than later, because I have some extremely challenging different variations of 2-lane roundabouts that are on slopes and have obscured views, things like that. So I thought that was great. But I'm not sure if you have like more feedback on roundabouts with cross traffic in front.
Yeah. So generally, it did a good job shooting the gap or going when it should have. There was one this morning where the person to my left was entering the roundabout the same time I was, and the Tesla chose not to go. They might have been rolling, I might have been stopped. But like that was like very marginal on edge as far as because like they were further south on the clock than 9 o'clock on the roundabout. So like they were like 8 or 7:30. So like I think the Tesla made the correct choice, but I probably would have gone for it. But like otherwise, it's doing a good job in getting out there. And there have been a couple times where, and this is a couple times out of like it's something like 84 or 86 attempts, probably on at least 20 different roundabouts, if not 30, that it went out when it shouldn't have, where it was, it didn't judge it correctly. But yeah, I think this is a step change, and where I'm seeing it make mistakes or have trouble are issues where any driver would have trouble. I was with Gary Black yesterday in Chicago, and there was the route wanted to go by a street, and I noticed that a semi was backing into a loading dock, and it essentially is blocking the whole street. And the Tesla wanted to go where the semi was blocking. but like that was really unusual. There were a couple instances too where there is some construction around this area, as in with Gary Black, where a big truck was blocking my lane, and another one where a concrete truck was blocking my lane. But overall, it does really well and is really smooth. Gary felt comfortable in the car.
Now he sold half his position, right, Bradford?
Yeah, he did before the ride. Yeah.
And now you think he's gonna buy it back because of the ride?
I don't think so. I didn't do that good. I should have
Now,
had you with me though.
talking about traders, meet Kevin. Some people are saying in the replies and on YouTube Live, meet Kevin is shorting Tesla. How about that?
Wow, that's pretty. It's pretty strong.
Yeah, that's a strong statement. Well, but we also have Machine in here who bought puts on Tesla a couple of weeks ago. So I guess it's not that different.
So I can give a little context for why Gary sold. He said he met with management that week, and they didn't really give him confidence that auto margins had bottomed, and they didn't give any clarity on what kind of volume they were going to do this year. But they did end up talking a lot, he said, about advertising and what they're doing on advertising. So I think those efforts are moving forward. So yeah, this trip has been very enlightening for me, and I'm glad I can share it out with the world.
Thank you. Omar, what do you think about these short-term traders like Meet Kevin or Machine betting against Tesla?
Well, in the short term, they may very well make some money. It may be kind of an overcrowded, obvious trade at this point. But the thing is, with FSD Beta 12, you're playing with a bomb. And at any moment, it could blow up in your face. Right? I mean, this is a technology that you look at where all the other sort of AI stocks are. And people are paying attention to this. I know because they follow me. Heads of VCs, fund managers, they're looking into this stuff. They're asking questions about it. They know that people are, the FSD team, the AI team is just doing some of the most incredible work we've ever seen since they started this project years ago, since I started using Autopilot in 2018, really. And everyone's just laughing at them. Ha ha, you can't do it. My FSD doesn't even work that well, even though it's amazing. And, people are just really not appreciative of what's happening. At any moment, there could be an event. I don't know what's necessarily going to trigger it, but some event where the market wakes up, that chat GPT moment. And at that point, it's very easy to just blow your face off if you're short this thing.
Machine?
I mean, Omar's not incorrect totally. Like, there is that possibility, but practically, I fully expect the market reaction to FSD to lag our perception of the competence of FSD. I mean, you're talking about investors who basically had to be hit on the head with NVIDIA earnings growth to push that stock up higher. It's not like NVIDIA got ahead of itself. No, they just got to wait each time for them to keep growing earnings in a much more simple business. Just as an example, we could go back to Tesla as well in 2019. It's not like they really priced in Tesla's growth ahead of time. They had to wait, be hit by a hammer by them turning more and more profits and releasing the Model Y for it to then still 3x above that at that time. So this idea that if you are shorting, you might lose money, but you're going to miss out on some big boom, like it's some instantaneous skyrocket of share price, is not going to happen. It's not going to happen over a few months, let alone a month or a week or a day. So in my opinion, as long as I'm paying attention, I will change direction based on what I see. And if I see Rebellion Air driving around the US and not getting any disengagements on a drive, and I'm seeing Omar not fast forward his videos and drive with his crotch and still not get any critical disengagement.
Did Omar give you a V12 ride yet? Did he give you a V12 ride
No,
yet?
and if he gives me a V12 ride, that is also bullish, right? Because that means he's actually he trusts the software to an unbiased third.
I'm going to America's Tire in Redwood City tomorrow. Maybe if I get 12.3, we can do it.
All right. So yeah, I will buy calls out of your mind if that all happens. And I will also buy calls if the stock goes down to 150. Either way.
And you think 150? You think 150 is the lowest it can go?
No, I think it could go lower for sure. That's totally supported by the flat earnings. I mean, you got a company with flat earnings, and the PE ratio is one where you could support a share price closer to 100 in theory. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but obviously you can't be greedy. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm aiming for now.
Brad, do you have any comments on short-term prospects of the stock price? Maybe Q1 production, Q1 deliveries, Q1 earnings, anything around that?
Yeah, I think we all know by now, Model Y production is higher in Berlin, but we had the whole arson attack that set them back. Model Y production is higher in Austin. I can say that there has been a step change in Model 3 Plus production in Fremont. Not quite back to where it used to be, but not at the levels, the weak levels we saw a few weeks ago. A step change higher. So I'm excited about that, but that won't affect the Q1 numbers. I did want to ask Machine, I'm going to be in Sacramento Sunday night, so if you want to see V12, if you're close by, let's do it.
There you go, Machine.
Thanks. I'm still a few hours away from Sacramento, so
really?
I'll just wait for Omar.
Well, I guess you're not serious about your due diligence then.
Listen,
dude, this guy Brad Machine actually has a Model 3, and he has no, he doesn't have FSD, right? Do you have FSD or no? I know you don't have a 2.5 hardware.
Ask Omar what I have.
Yeah, he has hardware 2. It's ridiculous. How do you have a Tesla and not have FSD and come up here every single day?
You don't even
tell
have
us
a
about.
Tesla. So
I know that's why I said, how do you have a Tesla and not FSD? I didn't say.
I understand what you said. Just another slimy, squeaky little snake like Meta.
Listen, I don't have a. No, that's not true. That's not true. I've always said, I don't have a car, so why even bother? But the thing is, like, if you're gonna come up here every day, you should probably drive a V12 first. I've driven V12. Have you driven V12?
No, I'm waiting for Omar to let me drive.
Exactly. Bradford?
I might say a bad word here, so if I do, please don't remove me from the speaker panel, Yaman. But supposedly there's a gap around 144 a share that could be filled.
Oh no, you're going to. I know what you're going to say. You're going to TA. You're going to TA, aren't you?
No TA with VA?
There's exactly no TA with VA. There's only VA.
Okay, all right.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Supposedly, like, there's a gap that there should be support if it did hit 144, and there's like this trend line down, but like I gotta think like we're close to a bottom. Maybe this quarter, the gross margins will be worse, but you have Model 3 Plus coming online, getting closer to 100% of where they were. Not there yet, but costs will be lower. Profits will be higher for Model 3 coming out of Fremont. And that's a lot of cars that they'll be producing there. So I got to think things have stabilized. Now,
we have two quick news items. One, Janet Yellen says the U.S. taking steps to ensure that domestic electric vehicle industry is successful in the face of Chinese competition. Janet Yellen just said U.S. taking steps to ensure that domestic electric vehicle industry is successful in the face of Chinese competition. And then the second news item, thank you, Chris, in YouTube Live, 7 a.m. Central Time tomorrow, 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, possible IFT-3 Starship flight. Bradford, are you in? You're staying for this flight?
am I staying for what?
The Starship. Launch?
No, I can't make it. So I'm in Normal, Illinois. I'm on my way to Omaha, Nebraska. I'm gonna go by the big man's house. Gonna circle it a couple times. I might go to the office in the morning and offer someone there a V12 ride. If anyone's got a connection, love to make it happen. And then we'll be on to Denver, Salt Lake City, and then all the way back to Sacramento.
All right. Omar, I thought you were coming down. Omar, I thought you were coming down for this time.
Yeah, but then I was like, driving 48 hours without autopilot. Sounds like my arms would get a little tired. But if they ship autopilot, I'm there.
Yeah. I was banking on you, man.
Well, I'm kind of hoping maybe it'll get delayed. Then I'll come for the updated date.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? Any questions for Omar, Wes, Bradford? Please request to speak. Omar, go ahead.
Yeah, I think really you look at Tesla today and they've got some great products. Their sales are growing every year, right? So this isn't a company where it's like, oh my God, sales are falling. Nobody wants to buy their product anymore. Sales are actually growing. Every quarter is better than the year ago quarter. Every year is better than the last year. They're selling more cars than they ever have. The only issue is, due to all of the economic headwinds we've discussed, due to the environment, the profit's about half as much as it was before. So everybody's freaking the fuck out. Bulls are turning into bears. People are crying. They're shorting Tesla now. All because they're making a little bit less money on the cars, half as much money as they were before. And it kind of just reminds me of, that video where they say, hey, watch the basketball and see how many people pass the basketball. And then they go, did you notice the gorilla in the gorilla suit walking through? And everyone goes, oh my God, I didn't notice the gorilla in the gorilla suit. That's like Tesla right now. Everybody's watching the automotive business and they're wringing their hands over what's just really Tesla trying to continue to expand volume in a environment that isn't favorable to growth. So they're having to do that by playing with pricing and bringing it down. But it's a great thing because you're just expanding the size of the fleet. You're getting more data. You're breaking into these new markets that they're going to try to break into with the $25,000 car. There's all these upsides as well. They're essentially investing this margin in ways that I think are going to benefit the company long term. And while everybody's just staring at the automotive business, they're missing the gorilla that's walking through the scene. And that gorilla is FSD and Optimus. And it's starting to ship now. FSD 12.3 is starting to roll out. Forget everything you knew about FSD. It was all a joke compared to the 12 series. And it's going to fix many problems that you've had for years that you thought would never get fixed. It's going to be way more smooth and comfortable. You're going to use it more. You're going to want to subscribe to it more. And it's going to look like a piece of shit compared to what we have a year from now. It's going to improve rapidly at a much faster rate. I've already seen that just between 12.1 and 12.2. And now we're already getting a 12.3.
Yeah.
So look at the gorilla that nobody's looking at. Because there have been so many times before where people look at Tesla and say, oh, this looks like such a great short. Oh my God, the Model 3 is such a disaster and they're losing money and they're never going to make money on this thing. The company's probably going to go bankrupt. Let's short it to hell. And then people short it and then it goes down and it looks like, oh my God, it's going down. They were right. Until suddenly it just blows up. And the market is littered with the dead bodies of legendary, smart short sellers who really knew their stuff, who blew up their fund because of Tesla. Remember Jim Chanos, the guy who predicted the collapse of Enron? He doesn't have a fund anymore because he just kept shorting Tesla.
Yeah. All right. Bradford, are you looking at the gorilla?
Yeah,
You're
I'm
riding the gorilla. Yeah, you felt the gorilla.
So
Hey,
what
I have
far as
I have a question for you. I saw a tweet today about Apollo. Did you see the tweet? I don't think it's at the top, but it's on YouTube Live. Apollo talking about the AI stocks. I just wanted to kind of get your view on this. Apollo just doubled down on their view that we are in a bigger bubble than the 2000 dot-com bubble. 3 weeks ago, they said the current bubble is bigger than the 1990s tech bubble. So this relates to more the NVIDIAs and the AMDs and the supermicros of the world, not Tesla, obviously. They note that the forward PE ratio for the top 10 tech stocks right now is 40 times compared to 2000 at the peak of the dot-com bubble. The forward PE on the top 10 stocks was 26 times. Now Apollo says 30% of stocks have a PE ratio of 30 times or more. Overall, Apollo says that PE ratios now are much higher than they were in 2000. What do you think about that, Bradford?
I really disagree. There were not a lot of earnings for the PEs in the 2000s when we had the dot-com bubble bursting. The poster child right now is Nvidia, that has like a huge growth in earnings, like real earnings, dollars on the bottom line. We're waiting on a turn here.
Yeah,
I do think
but
it's
they're not. But just I agree with you on what you said. Like, you're factually correct, but it doesn't address their points. What they're saying is top 10 tech stocks today have a 40 times forward PE versus a forward PE of 26 times back at the peak of the tech bubble. So it's slightly different nuance there. And this is not just anybody. This is Apollo. And they have the graph. I'm trying to pin it up here to show you.
Well, I would say they're cherry picking. So they're picking the top 10. So if you pick the top 100 in the year 2000, many of the top 100 didn't have any earnings.
Right.
So, and who's Apollo again? So are they a value shop? Are they real estate? Like, I'm forgetting who they are right now. Do you happen to know what they're good at?
There's so many Apollos out there, but Apollo Asset Management, private equity firm, I know them as credit, private equity, real assets.
I think one interesting thought I'd like to discuss is there seems to be this approach where everyone's investing in the humanoid robot startups, and they're collecting money. They're not like quite overvalued yet. And I feel like these VCs and private equity people who are funding them are taking an approach where they're trying to own all of them and benefit if one of them runs really big. I'm wondering about that versus picking, who I think is the clear leader.
So the post that regarding Apollo's view is at the top of your screens on X Space and is in front of your screens on YouTube Live. And so, Bradford, you can take a look at it if you want. I thought it was interesting. So you don't think NVIDIA is in a bubble right now? You think that NVIDIA will generate tens of billions? So you're with Wes. Wes and you believe that NVIDIA is going to generate tens of billions of dollars next year and the year after in profits, and therefore $2 trillion valuation is appropriate.
Yeah, we're still choosing to own it outright. We have cut our position in half. I do think sentiment is in bubble territory with NVIDIA and some of these chip stocks. But in November, I did a video where I said that this year they were going to do $25 in earnings. I think that's getting close to where consensus is now. And I talked about how they might be able to double their earnings next year. Now, they may have to lower prices, which will lower margins. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. So, maybe it's only like $40 a share next year instead of like a outright doubling of their earnings. But they are doubling their supply toward the end of this year. I think the biggest risk is that you could have specs leak for the next generation of AI chips, and you could have a buyer strike, or you have the issue with just how the big players are trying to reduce cost on inference, and they're shrinking the models for inference and just making it much more efficient. I think that's a risk for NVIDIA.
Yeah, if Meta wants to come up and talk about it, he's welcome to do so. On top of that, there's a note that's going around again at the top of our screens on YouTube Live, or you can just go to VA_macro to see these tweets. I keep my macro tweets there. JP Morgan, go ahead, Brett.
I got a question for you, Yaman. So
yeah.
You think it's odd that Janet Yellen is, and she's in the Treasury, right, is weighing in on that EV company, U.S. EV companies should be supported against Chinese ones? Is that in her mandate?
Yeah, I mean, Treasury Secretary, they have all the credits and everything. So yeah, of course.
They have what again?
Federal credits. I mean, she's part of the administration right now. Right? She's not just an ex-chair of the Fed. She's also the Treasury Secretary. So
all you have to do is say Chinese EVs don't get the point of sale credit. Boom. You just wiped out their cost advantage.
Yeah. Bradford, if you get a chance to look at production deliveries or earnings estimates for Q1, you're welcome to come up and talk about it in future spaces. I was just starting to say, there's a JP Morgan note that's making the rounds today. Momentum crowd.
What number are they at? Yeah, I'm curious.
They're talking about momentum crowding at 99.8 percentile. Momentum crowding, 99.8 percentile. Last seen at the peak of 2000 tech bubble. And this is on YouTube Live, and I'm going to pin it up here as well. If you're on X, you can just look at the chart.
And that's saying that the stocks that have the highest momentum, that they're extremely overbought due to people riding momentum and FOMOing into them, so that your risk in the high momentum stocks is extremely high for like a short-term setback.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of chip stocks, really.
I do think it's an incredibly exciting time. I haven't looked at it yet, but we have Figure AI with their robot talking now. It uses Chat GPT or whatever with OpenAI can talk now. I haven't looked to see how good that is, and maybe it's a stunt, but things are moving incredibly fast, and people are having FOMO. Yeah, I think it's a time to be a bit measured when like everyone is like super excited. But like if you put the investment side out of it and forget about risk reward on the investment side, I just think this is a incredibly exciting time. And like Tesla's figuring this stuff out with V12. Like literally it fixed every problem in my area. Every problem spot is gone. Like this is a step change. Yeah, I may not totally be happy with how it pulls out somewhere, and if we weren't recording the space, I would say that Elon's never been great at that. But it's like they are going to fix this issue. They're going to train it on that, and it's going to be safer than V11. And our biggest frustration on this trip has been V11 on the highway. It's not been V12 on the city streets. And Dax is here with me. He's been with me for what, 11, 12 days, whatever.
I don't know yet.
He's getting up there. Like, do you agree with that assessment?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's where we're at. This is a big deal. I agree. People are sleeping on it. They're watching the people pass the ball, and they're not noticing the gorilla walking across.
Bradford, when do you think FSD's improvements will be reflected on Tesla's financial statements?
Well, I think for that you need an uptake in the take rate for FSD. I feel like beyond X that people aren't really going to know about how good it is because it is a change and it is a step change. So you need a awareness building event from that. Elon could definitely build awareness, doing interviews while it's on FSD. Yeah, I'm excited to see what's changed with V12.3. But I feel like almost you got to do like a free trial, or you got to add like maybe a free trial plus referral code where people get points if people sign up for a free FSD trial.
Demo drive.
Yeah, demo drives on FSD V12 plus. That would be smart. Might as well do that on a 3 plus if they get on hardware 4, which I think it's going to be fairly trivial or doable for them to get this on hardware 4. The car I'm on right now is a 2019 Model 3 long range, so it's hardware 3 and it's working, and I think the issues I've experienced are going to be fixable. I think they'll fit into the hardware 3 hardware memory, so I'm really excited.
If you could direct the AI team to fix one or two things for you, what would you have them fix?
So I'll say one more thing that's been fixed, except for very firm braking that can happen at yellow lights where you have the opportunity to stop and you really should be stopping, and V12 does do that. Beyond that, they have fixed phantom braking. There is no like phantom braking. There is no hard braking from like whatever you're going down to zero. That is totally gone. So like when we talk about smoothness and comfort, all of that is extremely important for people when they go on a ride of FSD. The main thing I think they should be training on is just making sure it's 100% on when it decides to pull out, and it isn't pulling out in a way where it's going to cause the cars that are crossing your path to have to veer or hard brake. So that would be the number one thing I think is safety critical right now.
Okay.
The other issue is like when it pulls out, it does pull out pretty aggressively, and like the acceleration is good, but while it's pulling out, it does it does it at a it seems singularly focused. So like there's one time we pulled out and there was a speed bump right there, and it went fast. It kind of ignored the speed bump. There was a time when it was, so we got snow. So our video with Dylan Loomis is probably coming out Friday morning, and we have some snow in that video. It did fine while we were on a road that was snowy and we were turning onto a road that was snowy. It noticed the loss of grip, so it slowed down on the braking. It slowed down on the turning until it had it. That was great. But when it pulled out from a stop in the snow, it pulled out very aggressively, and it had to turn when it pulled out. And so like that needs to be fixed. But so I'm a little worried that like it has a singular focus when it's pulling out and turning at the same time. So those would be the two things.
Okay, thank you. Wes, do you have any questions for Bradford? Any other questions? And then based on what you've heard so far, are you adjusting your estimate of a first robotaxi ride?
I'm not adjusting yet, and I don't have more questions. What would make me adjust it would be to see a lot more roundabouts with cross traffic at this point. And then, of course, like, more zero critical interventions in urban environments. But so far, it's been really promising, and I really appreciate the videos.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Please request to speak, Bradford.
I want to ask Omar that question. What do you think they should focus on with their training?
Look, whatever they're doing, I think it's working. So I'm just looking forward to them continuing to roll this out. There's clearly amazing things happening across the industry. There's really a wave here that Tesla gets to ride. A lot of it is the work they've put in over the years. A lot of it is just our understanding of machine learning just advancing quite rapidly. There was also an interesting video Figure put out today about their Figure OpenAI integration, which was really just kind of, you know, I think kind of basically chat GPT with vision layered on top of a Figure robot. There was probably kind of less integration than maybe it seems. Essentially, you've got the chat GPT running and talking and using the vision. And I think sort of probably generating some type of JSON or something that triggers the robot to perform a task or something like that based on the input that's coming in. So, y- you know, I think it's probably a little bit less impressive than it seems, but it was fascinating. I think really looking at this and thinking about, this is what this robot is going to be able to do. It's going to have state of the art vision capabilities. It's going to have great language capabilities.
Yo, Omar, I have good news for you.
Oh, yeah?
So Fisker just hired bankruptcy advisor, so do what you want with that.
Oh, shit. Okay. There's
So I
another
think
one
the
to go
filing
short.
could be out next week, as soon as next week.
Oh, wow. I'm not surprised. There you go, guys. Buy some puts.
What company is this, Kirkavin?
Fisker, FSR, the wannabe EV company.
Yeah, not to be confused with the Figure AI we were just talking.
Yeah,
Thank you,
the stock
Gurgavin.
just
Appreciate
dropped
that.
The stock just dropped 40% after hours.
Holy
Yeah.
shit. Wow.
All right, thank you.
We call them Frisker.
All right, back to Figure AI. Meta?
Yeah, I think generally you can think of this AI problem as three stages. There's the inputs, peripherals, whatever you want to call it. There's the controls, which is like the outputs, and then there's deep reasoning. It's the same thing for the vehicle as it is for Optimus. And for Optimus and Figure and all these different companies, they can actually show a lot of that development is being expedited through things like LLMs. And there's just a model that came out today from DeepMind that shows complex reasoning in video games. So it removes the input output and it just strongly focusing on like complete this mission or do this thing in a video game. So I think all three fronts are developing really, really fast, and Tesla's dominated the first and the third, and the industry is kind of open source in the middle. So they have all the advantage here.
Yeah, so I think the demo of GPT-4 with vision, which is probably the most impressive language vision model I've seen. I love using it on my phone. So it doesn't really seem like a deep integration yet. It seems very surface level. Like you've got kind of GPT with vision running, and then you've got sort of the figure system. And then I think the GPT system is sort of dispatching commands to the figure, which is then executing these routines, which look very fluid um, and very lifelike. So, the robot's movements look great, but it did bring up a couple questions. So, okay, now presumably you're reaching out to OpenAI's models over the internet. They're not actually giving you GPT-4 with language to run on the figure, at least not presumably. I mean, Microsoft has the exclusive rights to the weights of the model. So they need to maybe get Microsoft in if they were to do something like that. But it seems like right now they're reaching out to the cloud and inferencing GPT-4 vision in the cloud. Whether the robot has the hardware to inference GPT-4 with vision locally, I think it possibly could, but I mean, we're talking about a very, very large model here. Um, I mean, you could fit it on the storage on the robot, sure, but it might be a little more capability than they needed to put in. So obviously, this introduces some delay if you're going out to the internet and you're calling GPT, and then you're translating that to actions for the robot. Um, so that's kind of an interesting thing. And then if you want to have the robot go out to an area without cell service or Wi-Fi service or something, it might lose some of those Wi-Fi and vision capabilities. So that's kind of an interesting sort of detail to follow. If Tesla had a strong vision language model that could run locally on the device, and Grok being open source now, you can download the model weights, you can use that. Um, that would obviously be a more powerful approach. That would be my preferred approach as an engineer, is to have all the inferencing done on the device. In some cases, it may make sense to reach out to the server, but ideally, I'd like to see it fail gracefully to a local model. Then the other question I have is, does this actually handicap Figure? Because you have this division of the technology between OpenAI and Figure. So Figure has their own models, but the vision and language capabilities are just going to come from OpenAI, and they're going to have to integrate with each other. So it's a cool demo, but it does also raise some questions about what this really looks like. Is the most valuable IP here going to be owned by Figure, or is it actually going to be owned by OpenAI? And they just sort of cut Figure's balls off, so to speak, by making this intelligence available to other robotics, and the hardware just becomes sort of commoditized.
So the advantage of splitting it into three, where your deep reasoning is a separate, like think of V11 here, right? We had perception, we had controls, and there was deep reasoning as well, right? That's the planner. So if you split this into three, then the third piece is what's being done by OpenAI only. And the beauty of that is most of the planning you actually have to do is pretty consistent, right? Like if you say fold the laundry and it's looking at a scenescape, it can kind of figure out how to go and fold the laundry. Well, Figure currently is doing demos and various other things. So they can kind of outsource that middle part for now, cache all the reasoning, right? So there's reason and act. So they can cache all the reasoning and then use their local models to do all the action. So the proprietary parts would be the controls part and the perception part. But perception's been pretty open source for a long time, and model reasoning is being open sourced. So really, it's only down to perception and hardware, which is why I think that's where manufacturing is going to be the big differentiator. You can almost think of the perception as like a driver, a very complicated driver.
Yeah. Meta, what percent probability do you assign Fisker ever reaching 1 million humanoids? I mean, not Fisker, my bad. Figure. Oh my gosh. Figure.
0. I can answer that question. 0. I think Fisker gets to 0.
Figure.
I think Figure
on-
will succeed
On
at a million.
YouTube Live, Figure's announcement, you can see it on the screen. 6 hours ago, they said with OpenAI, Figure 1 can now have full conversations with people. OpenAI models provide high-level visual and language intelligence. Figure neural networks deliver fast, low-level, dexterous robot actions. Everything in this video is a neural network, Figure says. So you're saying what probability to 1 million Figure humanoids?
70%. I think they'll get there. It's like we're giving
Wow.
them infinite time here, right? I think they'll get there. There's
2030.
so much demand. There's so much demand for humanoid robots. Like we got to make 10 billion plus of these things, right? Everybody's going to want one. So
I
don't
know,
think
but
there's gonna be a
there's so much demand for robotaxis too. Do you think Waymo is going to get to tens of thousands of robotaxis?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Bradford. And now we're going to switch topics real quick, and we're going to get an update from Ken on Meet Kevin. But Bradford, go ahead.
So I've certainly been critical of Brett Adcock at Figure. Just didn't get great vibes. But like one thing you can say that they've done well is they've done a great job in showing different demos along the way and focusing their resources and efforts that way. And a big criticism is it seems like their AI team isn't that big, but now they have this partnership with OpenAI, so it's almost like they're addressing it that way. I'm curious how this interplay is going to work out, because like OpenAI isn't, it's not vertically integrated into Figure. It's a separate company, but it addresses a material weakness of theirs. I think Figure AI has a chance. 70% sounds a bit high, but I think there's a big blue ocean for this. I think some of the approaches I don't agree with. It seems like there's some companies that are trying to teach the bots certain ways where it's like the old way Tesla trained FSD. It was like language of lanes and all this stuff. And I don't think that's the path forward. Go ahead, Meta.
Yeah. A lot of people, I think, are making this assumption that you could get to V12 and end-to-end nets without going through the middle process. I don't think you can build out your eval sets and the testing infrastructure you need to build to train an end-to-end model for any reasonably complex task from beginning to end. So you have to do it in a pipeline. And so I think that's why they're doing it this way. Also, the middle piece that we're saying they're open sourcing, Llama and Gemma are already out there. We're already seeing models see 10x improvements through just various innovations that are happening in the space. So if I was Figure, or if I was investing in Figure, which I'm not, and I was on their board and they were like, hey, we're going to
Figure
spend a whole
one,
bunch of
what do
time
you see right now?
competing in LLMs and building a really good LLM model, I would almost steer them away from that.
I
That would
see
be a
a
waste of
red
resources.
apple
You're
on
better
a
off
plate in
waiting
the center of the
till
table,
that stuff
a drying
has
rack with cups and a
plateaued,
plate,
use the
and
best
you
open source
standing
stuff,
nearby with
and
your
really
hand
get
on
your
the table.
hardware and your drivers
Great.
for the
Can I have
hardware,
something
both
to
on
eat?
perception and on controls, working really well.
Sure thing.
Meta, who do you think Figure is going to use to
Great.
manufacture 1 million
Can you
humanoids?
explain why you did what you
I would
just
assume they have to
did
do that
while you
themselves.
pick
If
up
they
this
don't do
trash?
it themselves, then you might be right. Like, I think they have to develop a manufacturing
On it.
expertise.
So I gave you the apple because it's the only
I mean, it took
edible
Tesla,
item I could provide you with
more
from
than
the
a decade,
table.
maybe 2 decades to do that, right?
I think cars are more complex than bots.
Great. So
There are people making
based
bots
on
in
the
their
scene
garages.
right
I don't
now,
know a lot
where
of
do you think the dishes
people
in
making
front of you
cars
go
from
next?
3D printers in their garages.
Yeah, but anybody can make one bot.
The dishes on the table,
To make a
like
million
that
of them,
plate
you
and
have to
cup,
have
are
massive
likely to
manufacturing
go into the
expertise.
drying rack next.
And obviously that comes with its
Great. Can
own
you put them there?
problems where, you don't really know what problems you're going to have until after you start production
Of course.
sometimes. And you order your billions of dollars worth of equipment, and all of a sudden you find out that, oh no, we did something wrong. We have to go back to this. So you think Figure can't figure that out? No pun intended.
Yeah, I know. I do think so. I think rapid prototyping
All
is
right.
definitely
So
something
how
that
do
you
you
have to
think you
do.
did?
Prototypes are expensive. As long as they rapidly prototype and they get something that
I
can
think I
walk,
did
it can
pretty
do
well.
complex
The
things,
apple found its
it would
new
be a
owner. The
useful.
trash is
It's
gone,
kind of
and the
like
tableware is right
the
where
old
it belongs.
ASICs. Like, as H100s come out, A100s don't just get thrown in the trash. They still have value. They still provide service in other spaces. So you may not have the fanciest, most dexterous robot, but maybe you don't need that for a busboy.
Bradford.
And I think our thinking on 3D printing is a bit anchored. What I've heard about 3D printing is that it can be used to scale to the 100,000 mark and maybe beyond, so that you don't have to like go to a casting approach necessarily or other approaches if you're at that type of scale. I think our thinking is a bit anchored because we've seen some bad examples like Nikola with their, 3D printers that Trevor Milton wanted to show off to the world.
I would even go further to say I would seriously doubt the need for casting. I think stamping is gonna be more than enough. If you look at an arm or a leg, you just stamp both sides and then you join them. I don't know that you have to cast it. It's not such a big piece of machinery that you need to like have structural integrity and you're trying to reduce that many things. Also, if these things self-assemble, you don't have to worry about human labor either.
So the question for you then, Meta, is how do you make the actuators? Would you need to cast those, or?
I mean, actuators are made of a lot of fine parts. That's probably the place where I agree. There's like basically a factory line machine that needs to be built. But that you sort out in your rapid prototype.
Meta, you're cutting off, but before you cut off entirely, I want to propose a coffee bet. You said.
Actuators. Go ahead.
Just finish your sentence. You cut off a little bit, so I thought you stopped speaking. Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, actuators are kind of one of those things where it's like making fine motors. People, some classes, you'll make them in high school, you'll make them in college, so people can hand make them. They're fairly well understood, but at the risk of saying, cars are easy to make, I don't think there's anything novel about the actuators Tesla's making. What's novel is their ability to use data to decide exactly the right size to make. But unfortunately, they share that with everybody, so that secret's gone.
Okay. So you said 100% probability of figuring out 1 million robots.
It said 70, but yes.
Oh, 70%, my bad. And you want to take a coffee bet on that?
How do you do a coffee bet on 70%?
Well, it's more than 50. So you're thinking it's more likely than not.
How about 700,000?
No. Hold on. Just 1 million
Bradford,
is the mark.
But it's an S curve, right? So if we go 70% back, it'll probably be closer.
Order. Or can you hear me banging the table? Okay. 1 million by 2030.
I'm not making that coffee bet.
Why not?
I don't have any particular expertise in hardware to be that strong about this, and your coffee's getting very expensive.
Well, then you're taking a strike, buddy. You're taking a strike.
I said 70%. I said 70%. That's not a statement that I think you can turn into a bet.
Fine. Well, let me know if you change your mind on that one. If
you want to talk 100,000, we could talk 100,000.
Now you're negotiating. It's really just kind of frowned upon in our coffee bets, friendly, bets here to kind of change your words, especially removing a zero like that. Are you kidding me? Who does that? Have some confidence in what you're saying. While you work up that confidence, Ken, would you like to give us an update on Meet Kevin?
Sure, absolutely. Not a problem. About an hour ago, a little over an hour ago, Meet Kevin came out with a video saying he was going short on Tesla. And then Tesla Boomer Mama posted on X that Kevin had gone short and wanted further details. And Kevin jumped on in response to her and said he sold his entire position. His entire position was 36,840 shares. So he went through that. And I just started his video on YouTube to find out what's going on. And he is saying that he likes Tesla a lot. He likes the long term. He's in FSD, Tesla bot, all that good stuff, and understands this is a short term play only. This is not anything that he's going to be doing long term. It's short term. And it's based on what he thinks the Fed is going to do in the short term. And that's based on the CPIU figures, he was saying. And that's as far as I got into the video before I stepped on here. So that's his news for today.
Got it. Okay. Got it. So he's basically thinking that the Fed will stay higher for longer, and therefore Tesla stock will go down. So I mean, it's a big change in what he was doing before, which is it was the biggest position in his ETF, and I don't think he can short in that ETF. So I wonder if he's buying puts or whatever. So I'd be also interested in exactly how he's doing that too. Mike, do you have any more details?
No, all I can say is it's very disingenuous to be getting out of Tesla where you're a long-term investor because of the super core CPI number for February. That's just ridiculous. He got scared out of Tesla because like the 300,000 followers of Troy Tesla understands on Twitter that first quarter deliveries are going to be around 400,000. And with the fixed cost negative operating leverage, everyone knows that the first quarter is going to be bad, probably going to be negative GAAP earnings for Tesla in the first quarter. My point is everyone already knows this. Everyone's known this for 2 weeks. To sell Tesla at 175 when you're bullish long term on FSD and on Optimus, and blame it on the supercore 1 month's supercore CPI print. I think that's a red herring. He got scared, like a lot of people are getting scared. You're either in this for the long term and you're afraid to miss the trillions of dollars of value that is created, or you're not confident about Tesla's advantage in AI. I think it all comes down to FSD. Everything about Tesla right now is, does Tesla have a superior advantage in autonomy? And that comes down to, as Meta pointed out, perception, planning, and controls. And I had a question for Meta. Perception and controls doesn't seem to be an issue for Tesla. Planning is the big
Mike, before we switch to that real quick, on what you were saying about meet Kevin, obviously everybody is allowed to trade however they want, etc. He says he's going short. He also acknowledges, Mike, what you said, which is that this could be a bottom signal that even meet Kevin is going short on Tesla. We also know Gary Black sold half of his position and everything. So I mean, I think he's humble about it. And I agree with you that a lot of people already know that Q1 production deliveries will probably disappoint estimates. But on the other hand, before you joined, probably, Machine earlier responded to that and said, it is true that production and delivery figures will have some downside risk, disappoint, and everyone really knows about that. But what about the earnings? Do you expect, Mike, earnings to disappoint after PND disappoints?
Yeah, there's a lot of fixed cost leverage and variable cost leverage in Tesla's manufacturing model business. There's a lot of scale, and it's all built on increasing deliveries. So yeah, I think earnings will reflect negative operating leverage and negative fixed cost leverage. So earnings are going to be bad. I expect it to be negative for the first quarter.
See, I agree with you. I asked, so I wish you were here about an hour ago, because I asked everybody on speaker board, does anyone think that earnings might be negative? And it kind of shows a difference between, like, you understand operating leverage, fixed cost leverage. And I think that there's a risk that Q1 earnings might be negative. Now, having said that, I agree with you that FSD is doing really well. We're watching Omar's videos, Bradford's videos, etc. And so, Optimus is doing really well. So finish with your thoughts, and then I'm going to go to the new speaker.
I think this is a critical moment in Tesla's history. And I think that your space is the place to go to learn and to discuss and to debate the critical points in time. And right now, it should all be about FSD. What we should all be talking about and asking questions about is Tesla's advantages in FSD and the sustainability of that advantage, the proprietary nature that no one else can replicate, and the debate about planning. Planning is the hardest part, getting to level 5. To what extent can a neural network handle building the world model? And
thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your kind words on the space. If you want to, and I appreciate your recent help signing up as a patron. If you want to join as a patron to the Patreon to support the space, the link is at the top of your screens. Meta, you want to answer Mike's question?
Yeah, there's a couple of things he brought up. So in terms of the advantage, I've brought up in this space multiple times how with more data, now you can shrink models. That changes, maybe like 8-9 months ago, where academic papers were showing more data is not necessary. It's not going to improve quality. It can reduce hardware demand in inference. So that is an advantage Tesla gets to turn back on again. Not sure that the market ever thought it wasn't going to be turned on. So maybe it's a nothing burger. And then the second thing regarding, using planners that are in the cloud, you can cache all those stuff. So it doesn't really increase hardware demand. So I think Tesla will generally benefit from less hardware doing more because they already have all these vehicles out there that they can activate.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Edward real quick and then Bradford.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Yaman, for the opportunity. So I agree that FSD is probably the most important thing to watch out, especially the revenue recognition side, because it could help the margins and for the first quarter earnings. What I would like to focus, and I guess that even the brokers that are very bearish now are not bearish enough if we look at what is happening in China. I just posted in the space post a model that has received 30,000 orders in China that is in the same segment of Model Y. I cannot pronounce it, it's Zikro something. And then there is the model from Huawei that is in the Model Y segment as well. BYD, of course, that is doing a huge attack against Tesla. So what I'm saying is that if for the first time ever we are seeing inventory discount in China and the volumes are not going up, is because the competition in China is not strong, it's huge, but it's huge for everyone. Even the best ones are suffering.
Okay, do you have a question?
So my question is, Adam Jonas might be right, and
that's not a question.
Earnings can be negative.
Bradford, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to address the issue around planning. So the car can get out of a parking lot. We have this video for Memphis where the navigation, the map data said to go one way out of the parking lot, but there was like immense building construction going around. It wasn't like parking lot or road, it was building construction. So it couldn't go that way. Then it looks to the right, and if it went that way, it would the left turn it had to do was backed up. It didn't have any room to turn into the left turn lane. So it literally went back another exit so it could make the left turn and wasn't blocked for making the left turn. So I think from a planning standpoint, they're very far along. with V12, just V12.2.1. Omar?
Yeah. So in previous versions of FSD, the neural nets handled more of the perception layer and maybe a little bit of the planning and control, but a lot of that was done with C++ code. In version 12, they essentially threw away 300,000 lines of planning and control code, and they've moved to a new neural net that just does planning and control end to end within the neural network. So rather than outputting, for example, there's a car here, there's a car there, there's a car there, and then having a C++ human written planning and control stack, the model just takes in the inputs of what's coming in from the camera and other sensors, and it simply outputs the steering wheel and pedal actions that need to be taken. So all of the planning is now happening within the neural net. And as Bradford said, it's a quantum leap in planning. So I think when you try V12, you're going to see that the limitation in planning has really been in those 300,000 lines of C++ code that have now been removed. And it's not their fault. They've got some really talented engineers, but it's just extremely challenging to write C++ code that generalizes well to the incredibly wide diversity of the real world. Only a neural network can really do that well, I think.
Meta and then Bradford and then no hands mode. No hands mode.
For Omar and Bradford, I think you're the only ones on the board that have V12 to drive regularly. What percentage of trips would you say are safety critical disengagement free? Not like somebody's honking at you, or if the car stopped, it would be awkward. But like this could have harmed someone.
Well, most of my interventions on 12.2 have to do with it being too slow, which is amazing because 12.1 was just perfect. It was just the right amount of confidence. Sometimes it would be a little overconfident and I'd have to take over in a safety critical way. For example, trying to go when it wasn't appropriate or something like that. But for the most part, it just did extremely well. Now, in 12.2, most of the interventions I have are it being too slow or too hesitant. This is the first one that they started rolling out to more people. So I feel like they sort of dialed up the cautiousness a little bit. And in 12.3 and further versions, they're going to continue dialing it down. So I'd say, I might have a safety critical disengagement like once a week or something. So it's not like it's happening every day. The vast majority of my interventions are actually not that it's being too aggressive, but that it's not being aggressive enough.
Hey Omar, just a quick note. I saw your post about Gary Black selling his Tesla and Meet Kevin going short. I think Gary sold half his position, right? Or did he exit the entire position?
Yeah. Yeah, it's still
Okay.
a position. It's not one of the top 10 in his fund anymore.
Yeah, number 15, I think. Bradford?
Yeah, I'd say safety critical for us has been about 1%.
1% of trips or disengagements?
1% of trips.
So you're saying 99% of your trips do not have a safety critical disengagement?
Yep. And for me, that's a big improvement over version 11.
Omar, is that your experience? Only 1% of your trips have a safety critical disengagement.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Like I said, about once a week or so. So, but that's more than V11. V11 was probably down to 0.1% of trips or something like that. So it is higher than V11, but that's obviously just because this is a new approach. They haven't resolved some of these issues and they will with time. So, I mean, the promise of this thing is just incredible. It's a breakthrough. And there's definitely a boy who cried FSD syndrome happening here, which is there's this amazing progress, but people are kind of rolling their eyes and they're saying, I've heard this before. And it ended up taking a long time. So, yeah, okay, sounds exciting, but they're kind of shrugging their shoulders at this point. And I think it's really one of the things you kind of have to see and experience yourself to believe. And when they can actually get that out there, and they're actually sending out updates every couple weeks or every month at least, and people can just see it get better and better.
Wes.
So what do you guys think is the likelihood with the first wide release that most people on average are going to see 90% of their trips be zero disengagement or zero critical disengagement?
So I think that's going to be a high percentage, a very high percentage. I think it may be at 99%. I'm not saying Omar's wrong. My experience is more outside of California. It's possible maybe it's for safety critical. It took a step back in California. I think it's taken a big step forward elsewhere. But I've, even though we're going to put 6,000 miles on this car, it is a limited data set that I have. We have been aggressive about like trying to get V12 miles on in the cities we stop. But I think this is a huge leap forward, and I think like 90% of drives without any intervention. I think that's going to be the case.
Just to clarify, you mean 90% drives without a safety critical intervention or intervention overall?
Yeah, I think 99 is going to be percent for safety critical. For any intervention, I would say 90% plus.
Yeah, it just doesn't do those jerky motions where suddenly the wheel just moves to the left for a second or right to a second. It doesn't do those things where it suddenly stops or suddenly goes.
Machine.
What?
What do you think about what's being said? They're
So, I mean,
saying I needed
just-
some balance. I needed some balance, so you can request it for you to speak. I don't usually do that.
Who
Okay, so you're
requested for me to
special.
speak?
You're special. I did.
Well, thank you. I am special.
Yeah.
But your mom says too.
I rubbed that land so you come up and appear.
Well, your mom also rubbed a lamp last night.
We have 500 people in here. Stop making your mom do jokes after 100.
So I just want to say, you hear these Tesla bulls speaking big numbers. Oh, over 90% of the drives can be done without a critical disengagement. Guess what? That's already the case. Go look at the FSD beta tracker. You already have over 90% of the drives happening without a critical disengagement. So that number is not really that special. The number becomes special. I saw Omar ready, trigger happy over here to interrupt me. Don't interrupt me. You need to wait until the thing gets to 99.99% without a critical disengagement for this to become a really useful, potentially robotaxi level software. So we still have quite a way to go. There's a big difference between, bring on the disagrees. You need to get 100x improvement in the rate of disengagement for this thing to be ready for robotaxis. So that's a vast chasm still. And all these big models that you see in the market, whether it's ChatGPT or these diffusion models, the things that are deployed that aren't safety critical, they're not having 100x improvement suddenly in error rate over 1 week. It takes some time. And so I'm bullish, but this doesn't mean this is happening right now.
Bradford and Ameta.
Yeah, I agree. As far as robotaxi, you need like 100,000 trips without safety critical intervention or disengagement. But today I just got the wife approval. My wife hates version 11. She's hated FSD for years. We took the kids to school, then we drove to work, and then back to our house, and it was she loved it. She would start using version 12 if we got it. So as far as like a useful driver assist, I think we're like, if they can clean some stuff up, I think we're extremely close.
I agree.
I'm trying to bring Meta up. Meta, go ahead.
I just want to point out machines using bad data here again. He's saying 90% of physical disengagements is already where we're at, but he's using the denominator of total disengagements. And I was using percentage of trips, which is a higher bar.
Incorrect. Just think.
You know,
just
let me
making
tell you
stuff
something.
up.
Let me tell you something. We just had a request in YouTube live chat. Says machine should debate Meta one-on-one on a weekly basis, and we should change the name of the space to man versus machine.
Hey,
Well,
neuron versus machine.
They talk about these machine learning algorithms hallucinating, but I think what we've evidenced this week that it's actually Meta, alleged human, who keeps hallucinating. First, it was changing the agreement on what we were debating for robotaxi-like competency to just a driver assist. And now he's making some claim about a metric, which I did not say. The FSD beta tracker has a metric, which is the percent of trips that occur without critical disengagement. That's the metric I'm talking about. It's over 90% already.
Yep. Omar and then Bradford.
I mean, machine is like the guy who's never had sex, who's trying to explain what sex is like by looking at a spreadsheet. And he's trying to come in here and say, oh, version 11 is no different than version 12. Version 11's already at 90%. It's the way it feels. It's the fact that it's not making these jerky movements. It's just natural. That it is more aware of when it has visibility to go and when it doesn't. That it doesn't make these sort of jerky movements. And, I don't know. It's just something about it, right? You have two guys here who have actually driven in it, and it feels dramatically safer, which is really what matters to whether people subscribe and keep their subscription and all of that good stuff. So, I mean, I think this is really going to provide people the experience that we've been dreaming of all these years. Since really 2016, 2017, 8 years ago when they started this project and they said, you'll get in your car, summon it, it'll come out of the parking spot, you'll get in, it'll take you to your drive with zero interventions, you'll get out, it'll park itself. That's the experience that people are going to have this year. It's going to be a widespread experience, no matter what part of the country you're in with V12. They just kept working at it year after year. And, a lot of people laughed at them. A lot of people lost patience, but they've actually done it. Now, they, of course, need to grind on reliability until it's greater than human. And we don't know how long that could take. But pretty much everybody is going to get to experience what they really envision for this, a sort of feature complete product. And the rollout could be happening, this weekend for all we know. Like, it's here. We got 12.3 in testing with employees now. Everything's locked and loaded. And this thing that they've been working on for over a year, this new architecture, is finally ready to release.
Machine Dale is asking if your eye is supposed to represent Eye of Sauron that sees it all.
Represent what?
Eye of Sauron?
No.
No.
It just represents the eye of a sage, competent individual who's been more accurate on assessing the technology in Tesla.
Yeah. So you're saying it represents the I in team. Gotcha.
That's right.
Bradford.
Machine Saturday. Let's do it. Sacramento. I don't think I can make it all the way back to Bay Area before the car is due back. But come on out, see it for yourself.
Dude, you're missing the point here, Bradford. He is testing. His test, his litmus test, is when will Omar feel confident enough on FSD to get machine in his car? He doesn't want to mess up with that litmus test.
So afraid. First of all, Sacramento. I'm not going to Sacramento. It's basically Central Valley. It's by Stockton. It's just a shithole. I don't want to go there. You might as well just tell me to go to Lathrop. Like, oh, great. That's going to be exciting. Which you did try to do before. Oh, do you want to go to Lathrop, hang out, and count some megapacks? Secondly, Omar's so afraid because the one time he did take me an FSD ride at night, the car almost drove off the side of the hill and killed us. And then
that was
the
3 years ago. 4 years ago.
That didn't
the
even happen.
spaces wouldn't
Wow.
happen. This spaces wouldn't happen.
Are you hallucinating?
I'm not hallucinating.
I don't remember that. I remember there were like a couple disengagements, but it did pretty good overall. I mean, it's really, really good now. Like, I think you're going to be blown away. I could come give you a ride on 11.2, but it's just kind of driving a little bit like grandma. So I just kind of feel like I'm not giving you the real 12 experience. I'm kind of just waiting for 12.3. But like I said, I got to go change my tires at I'm an America's Tire in Redwood City tomorrow, so maybe I'll hit you up.
All right, yeah.
12.3 shows up.
I want you to give me a ride like Yaman's mom does.
You rode on Yaman's mom's dick, or what are we talking about here?
Oh my god. All right. Meta, I see you have a reply into the space. I pinned it at the top. But I think, man, I don't know, man. It's like
hold on.
Okay.
Let me have a moment. Machine, his eye represents what he needs to go get checked because clearly he can't read this graph. The exact graph from the exact website you claim, it has 0 disengagements and 1 disengagement or fewer, aka 1 probably the gap, and neither of them is above 90%. So when people are saying V12 will be 90%, if that were true, it would be a giant step forward.
I mean, first of all, we're talking out of our ass here. We're not measuring it. Even this tracker where they did measure things is, sort of a random subset of the users. You kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. But everybody will know it when they feel it. You don't need to analyze it. You don't need to put it in a spreadsheet. When you download it, you will notice right away how much better it is. And your wife is going to notice too. And your friends are going to notice too. And they're going to comment on it.
Machine, and then
I just want to machine.
Hold on one second.
I just want to point out the goalpost moving.
Don't listen. I have a bazooka, and I am not afraid to use my bazooka. Okay, don't make me mute everyone. Machine West, Dan Meta. Machine West Bradford and then Meta.
This is the third time that Meta has intentionally tried to skew the data. I think he's ready to go work for one of these New York Times or some other pseudo-journalistic news organization. Notice he shared a graph. He didn't share the graph above it. The top graph on that website is % of drives with no critical disengagement. That's the title of the graph. And it's above 90%. How did he miss that graph? I'll tell you how. Intentional deception.
So the
I'm
picture
gonna
I posted with the title isn't the title?
Machine, do you see that at the top?
Do I see the graph with the turquoise and orange?
Yeah.
That was the second graph on the website.
Okay.
What does the title read?
While Meta checks the website again.
Meta.
Guys, you guys are like toddlers. Meta, go check the website again. See if there's a graph on top
I'll
of
explain
what
it to you.
what is
Let me
no
explain it.
Wes and then Bradford. You guys need to cool down.
Hey, it's a question for Bradford, and I should have asked this earlier, but do you see any reason why the build that you've been driving shouldn't go wide to wide release? I'm curious if there's like a top reason that you think it shouldn't go wide based on your experience.
I would say this build, you may need a little more training education. So I'm at 99% with no critical disengagements. That's where I'm at, 99%. And maybe you do an accelerator press, 10% of your drive, something like that. I think you need to train people, and like literally it's so good in my area, I could become complacent. And I think that's a dangerous place to be for the software. So I think it's very important that people be on top of it, that they be like hyper focused when they drive. But that's another great thing about the software is, unless you're being a jackass and trying to be on your phone, it allows you to, see the scene and really focus on what the threats are to you of the scene that you're driving in.
Okay. Meta, did you get a chance to look at it again?
Yeah, so the first graph is only critical and the second one is only disengagements. It is confusing, but yeah, okay. So machine's right. I'll accept that I was wrong.
Oh boy.
I still will say the bar will move based on 11 and 12.
Okay. So what's it at right now according to that first graph on that? And just keep in mind that, as Omar said, this is not a scientific set of data. There's
I think it should be
but I think he's doing like
directionally
the
correct.
the creator of that website is doing, I think, the best he can given what he's working with. So Meta, where do you think it's going to go
I
then?
agree. Currently it's at 1.9, and machine wants it at 4 nines, which is a really high bar. But sure, if it gets to 2 nines or 3 nines, I think that would probably be saving lives, and at a point where if you don't really see, you're letting
Yeah,
people
but do you think V12.3 is going to get us the second 9?
I don't have enough rides to say that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, machine, you can't go to sleep tonight knowing that Meta said machine was right.
Yeah, I'm gonna take that audio clip and clip it, record it, and have it be my wake up alarm.
I'm glad I didn't do a coffee bet. You could have changed your coffee bet record with me. Speaking of which, Yaman, are you still confident Waymo's going out of business by July?
Don't try to deflect. Just take the L. Take the L. It's okay to lose. That's why we have coffee bets. If you're not losing coffee bets, you're not making enough coffee bets. All right. On that note, this has been going on for 2.5 hours. We again exceeded our 1 hour limits. We're going to end it here and we're going to continue tomorrow. Thank you very much, everybody. It was a great discussion. I highly recommend people who just joined to listen from the beginning. It was a great conversation, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Love your mom.